Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Drive, and in this video I'm going to be talking about aligning to clarity. So when I'm talking about aligning to clarity, I'm actually referring to a permanence. I'm referring to such a true permanence to ourselves that no matter what reality we exist in, no matter what body we are in, no matter what thoughts we have, no matter what feelings we have, no matter the condition of our mind, no matter what we create, no matter about what we try to impress upon ourselves, that clarity is always there. That's the permanence of our being. Now, looking into the nature of clarity, aligning to it, it's that moment where you know that mind no longer has a grasp on you. Now, we're not looking to make mind the enemy, but what we are looking to do is balance it out. We have our thoughts, we have our feelings, we have our expressions, we have our experiences. And again, this is all processed through the nature of mind. But even when you look at a time like this, where the quarantine is happening all over the world, and people have drawn their lines in the sand, right? People have said, this is the reason why the quarantine is happening, and this is the perspective you have to accept of me, and if you're not here, then I'm going to draw on this line in the sand, and you're good for nothing. And I've encountered people like that, right? Where they basically draw their line in the sand and saying, this is the way it is, this is exactly how the quarantines happen, this is exactly how the virus has happened, etc. And you look at that, and you just know, okay, well, it's just time to withdraw. It's time to move past that person right now. Not to say that you have any lack of love for them, but they are so very much hard in their ways. They are solidified in their ways that you just kind of step back and say, okay, I can see where this person is putting a lot of their aggression, feeling that they have a lot of wild emotions flowing through them right now, and it's time just to kind of step back, right? But no, you don't have any particular animosity towards that person, because the key here is being able to dissolve the barriers that even that person sees within themselves. So when they see themselves being aggressive or assertive or angry or upset or sad or depressed or fearful regarding any particular situation, not just what we're going through here, they again create this fog. And it's this fog that is creating a camouflage relating to our true clarity. We have the ability to see everybody as perfect, even ourselves. The only reason we see ourselves as being imperfect is because we create the very flaws that we don't want to have. We don't want to have them, but yet we create them. This is like what I've said in the past, is that when you're manifesting, you're not using the words of no or do not or should not or anything of that nature. I will not have this. I will not do this. Because we're still looking into what we don't want, but we're still giving it power at the same time. So the whole key here is being able to see yourself still in the moment. It's that moment where it's kind of like a storm on the horizon, right? We have a clear sky, feels like a nice day, all of a sudden something comes in. It's an emotional situation. Somebody comes into our life that we didn't expect and is giving us a hard time. We lose our job. We have money problems. We have family problems. We have partnership problems. This storm comes upon the horizon, and now it starts going right above our head, and it now starts to rain down. It now starts to pour. It now starts to hail. Their winds are gale force winds, maybe even it's a hurricane. Nonetheless, that storm is going to pass. There is no such thing as a permanent storm. Have we ever had a permanent storm on this planet? Not once. So, what this is saying is that all of our problems are transient. All of our problems are finite, which means they are susceptible to change. Change is the only constant, and that's a law of mind. So when we're looking into the aspect of mind, mind is always governed by that law, that change is the only constant, that the only constant is change. So we will have our problems, we will have our situations with our family, with our friends, with our jobs, with our careers, with our finances, with whatever else that we feel we try to create to make us feel like we're flawed. Because that is exactly how the artificial systems of this planet have been operating for many thousands of years and have evolved over times to try and maintain a type of enforcement, a fence, as it were. We're now just being able to realize that we are able to dissolve that fence. Because the whole key here in that sense is not to ever get rid of your mind, okay? There's a lot of ascetic belief relating to that, saying just don't be the mind, don't relate to the mind or anything like that, and that's fine. But you still have a mind. The whole idea is that you want to have clarity within the mind. You want to have it free of belief. And we have to work on this every single day, guys. I know that there's a lot of people that want a big red button that they can press and say, Brad, can I just fix these things and not be done with them and never have to come back again? It's like the idea of you staying in shape, right? It's not about you working in the gym one day a month and thinking that that's all you have to do. If you are very, very committed to staying in good shape, you're going to exercise regularly, right? You're going to eat well. You're going to do a good amount of work in that way. Well, that's the same thing with the mind, okay? The mind itself needs to be regulated. We need to be aware about what we were thinking. We're not just taking an off day and saying, oh, well, the mind's not so bad today, I'm just going to let it be. And now all these problems start flooding into you, and you don't catch them. And now they start flooding into you, and now you're creating your own flaws again, right? So the whole key here in that sense is to know that you are perfect. Know that you have perfect clarity at all times. And know what that clarity feels like. What you really need to do is, you really don't know how wonderful something is until you actually experience it, okay? This is what a lot of us lack, okay? It's like the idea of trying to learn how to swim, though the swimming pool is right in front of you, but you've been spending the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 5 months looking at books about swimming and the sensations of swimming and what swimming feels like and how to swim, etc. You've educated yourself all you need, but the water's right there, and you have never once jumped in. You've never jumped into the water one single time. And so you're never going to know exactly how amazing something feels until you actually jump into it. This is what experience gives us. So we jump into the pool, and now we feel the water for the first time, like, oh my God, this is the sensation. I can't even put it into words. It's a beautiful oasis. It feels perfect. I was just so afraid to take the leap. I was so afraid to go into the experience. I want people to intellectualize what it's like, what it's like, what it's like. That's not good enough. It's never good enough. That's the intellect, right? The intellect is never going to give you that clarity. The intellect is actually responsible for giving you a lack of clarity, because the fog moves in. The debris starts to pile up all around this crystalline clarity. But, as I've stated, everything within the mind is transient. It's finite. It's subjected to change. So change is a constant. So those things now start to flow away. They start to move. They start to decay. They start to deteriorate. They start to dissolve. The fog starts to dissipate. And now all that's left is pure clarity. Because you can get absolutely so infuriated with a person. You could spend 30 minutes arguing with them, but your body says, okay, that's enough. I'm depleted. I can't argue anymore. I can't fight anymore. I can't retaliate anymore. I collapse. That's the storm passing you over. And so what you're doing is, and I know this is challenging, a person who really understands that nature of clarity lets that person vent. Lets them vent, lets them do everything that they need to do. And all that person will do is withdraw themselves. They'll withdraw, and they'll just let that person share what they need to share. So if that's withdrawing, or if it's a person who even goes above and beyond and just holds space for that person, they just take deep breaths in and out, and that person's just screaming at them, you're this, and you're that, and you're the other thing, and you did this to me, and etc., etc., etc. And this is what's happening in this world, and people don't agree with me are stupid, and all of this. Just let it out, right? If you have to withdraw, let yourself withdraw. You're withdrawing, and you're doing no harm, right? But there's some that will just simply stay there and just hold space, and just let that person let out what they have to let out. And that's the very brave people. Sometimes I've done that, sometimes I haven't. Sometimes I've had to withdraw. But nonetheless, that person is going to go off on their tangents, and they're eventually going to collapse. Their body says, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough of this onslaught. Emotion is a very, very powerful energy, and you can't maintain it for very long. You can only be angry for so long. You can only be sad for so long. You can only be in distress for so long until you collapse. And when you collapse, that's now the opportunity. That's the breach, where you can now start to move past the fog, dissolve away the debris, and you see that crystalline clarity. That clarity is always there and saying, what am I doing? Why am I constantly fighting with myself? Why am I constantly fighting with others? Do I think that this is going to be the road to my perfection? Anytime I'm at odds with myself, or at others, or with systems, or with governance, or anything particular, I'm telling myself I'm a victim. I'm telling myself I'm hurt. I'm telling myself I'm abused. I'm trying to get a person to see my point of view when they can't see it. And I start arguing with them, I start fighting with them, I see exactly how I am hurt. Because again, I feel like people don't listen to me because I'm rejected. Because I've abused, I've been going through abuse, and so I try to control. I'm rejected because I must be a victim, right? And it just keeps going on through the countless times that I've talked about traumas and core emotions, etc., right? It's all just the same pattern. And what we have to understand is that once we get into that moment of clarity, just stay there. Be inside that swimming pool. Look into that water. Feel that water on your body. Feel the oasis that's there. And now as you spend more time in that clarity, you're not angry anymore. Because now you know what clarity feels like. Now you know what your truth, your natural self, your authenticity feels like. You're no longer contaminated by the nature of the flaws that you create through your own mind. The fog, the debris, all of that goes. And the only thing that remains is your clarity. So this again exists in every single person. So what my recommendation is that all of us, as many of us as we can bring forward, spends time in clarity. Taking deep breaths in, taking deep breaths out, going out to nature, just like I'm here right now, at a beach, just looking at the waves, looking at the mountains, looking at the clouds, looking at all of the beauty that's around me. There's people in chairs, there's crows sitting on fences, there's cars gathered around me. It's perfection. Why is it perfection? Because nothing is at odds with each other. There is harmony. It's not about how a person dresses. It's not about the type of chair that they have. It's not about the type of fences that are around you or the cars that are around you. Nothing is at odds with yourself in this moment. As nothing is at odds with you in this moment, you have obtained clarity. Sit in that clarity. Be present with it. Just feel it. Because now that you have a feeling, an experience of clarity, you have become an authority of it. You know what it's like. And now when you get caught up in the idea of a rat race, relating to the mind about being angry or fearful, sad about certain things, you catch yourself and say, remember that moment of clarity I had? That moment where I just sat and everything was perfect? I need to go back there again. Because that is going to be my substitute for everything that relates to being at odds with myself or others or events or things. People, places, events, or things. No longer at odds with any of those things because now I have 100% clarity. Right? People walking beside me right now. Perfect. Perfection. Car driving behind me right now. Perfect. Perfection. Why? Because nothing's at odds with each other. There's no conflict. There's no fighting. It simply is. That's the nature of clarity. And that's what we are looking to align to. So, align to clarity. You are perfect. You have always been perfect. It's what you create through the flaws of the mind that makes you think that you're not perfect, but that is only a transient thing. That's only a distortion. So, let's look into this a little bit more as we align to clarity. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Brad Johnson, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care. Thank you very much for checking out my channel. Below you'll see my links to social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also go to healingcodecards.com, pick up your own Healing Code Cards body deck, and of course check out my website at newearthteachings.com. Thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next video.